The challenge begins in a distant part of the galaxy, far beyond the stars known to Earth. A species called the apex hunters ruled the space lanes. They were not diplomats. They were not thinkers. They were predators by nature and warriors by choice. For generations, they had hunted across hundreds of worlds, testing their strength against every intelligent species they found. None had survived their challenge. None had made them bleed. Their ships were large and silent. Their eyes saw in the dark. Their weapons were fast and clean. They believed no creature could match them in battle. They believed no prey could ever turn into a threat. For them, hunting was not war. It was a sacred ritual. It was how they proved their dominance. On this day, they gathered in their high council chamber. A signal had come from a small blue planet near the edge of a quiet system. The planet showed signs of intelligent life, but there were no signs of advanced technology, no spaceflight, no defense systems, no energy fields. The creatures living. They were loud and unorganized. They fought among themselves. They harmed their own kind. They polluted their own world. The hunters laughed when they saw the images. Their leader, an old warrior with many scars, raised his voice. He said the new planet was perfect for the next hunt. It was untouched. It was wild. The species living there called themselves humans. The council approved the mission in less than 1 minute. A team of 5 hunters was chosen for the first contact hunt. Each one had survived 20 hunts across different planets. Each one had faced danger and won. They believed this mission would be easy. Their transport ship entered stealth mode and moved toward Earth without warning. As they neared the atmosphere, one of the younger hunters studied fresh footage sent by a hidden drone. It showed a human in the forest setting traps using wires and sharpened metal. The traps were placed with great care. The human moved with quiet steps. His eyes were sharp. He was not like the others seen in crowded cities. The young hunter felt a strange chill but did not speak. He feared being mocked. The team landed in a dark forest where no humans lived in large numbers. The trees were tall. The ground was soft. The air smelled of soil and animals. They wore suits that hid their heat. They moved like shadows. The leader ordered a sweep of the area. One by one, the hunters began scanning the ground. The heat signatures of nearby humans appeared faint and weak. They thought the hunt would begin at dawn. They would capture 1 or 2, study their reactions, then start the real chase. Their code did not allow the use of advanced weapons. They used only basic gear. It was their way of keeping the hunt pure. But something felt different this time. That night, the first hunter went missing. He had broken away from the group to follow a weak signal near a cave. His communicator went silent. His tracking beacon stopped moving. The others searched but found nothing. By morning, the second hunter found a trail of blood. It led to a tree. Hanging from the branch was the body of the missing hunter. His weapon was gone. His mask was shattered. Across his chest was a symbol written in red paint. A human symbol. A warning. The leader stared at the sign. He said it. Must be a lucky shot or an accident. Humans had no training. They were clever animals but still animals. He ordered the group to continue the hunt. But the forest was no longer silent. The animals had gone. The wind felt strange. The shadows moved in ways that made even the strongest hunter uneasy. On the second night, they heard sounds they could not explain. Metal scraping, whispers in the trees, a scream in the distance that was not from a human or a hunter. The youngest hunter whispered to himself. He said the humans were not like the others. He said they had fire inside them. He remembered a file from an old archive. It told of a world where life was harsh and survival meant being clever and brutal. He now believed Earth was that world. He now believed they had made a mistake. They had come to hunt. But the forest had become a trap, and the prey had teeth. The hunters did not sleep that night. They waited with weapons ready. Their leader sat by the fire, sharpening his blade. His face showed no fear, but his hands moved slower than before. He looked at the trees with narrow eyes. He had fought beasts with claws and wings. He had faced warriors with blades of fire. But this was different. He felt something new. Not fear of death, but fear of the unknown. He stood and spoke to his team. He said the humans were not prey. He said they were hunters too. He said the next move must be careful. The hunt was no longer a test. It was now a war between instincts. As the wind howled through the trees, a human shape appeared in the distance. It stood tall, holding nothing but a spear. The hunters raised their weapons. But before they could move, the figure vanished. The leader gave a signal to fall back. The first contact hunt was broken, but the true hunt had just begun. First blood. The forest remained still as the sun rose. Morning light touched the leaves, but the cold inside the hunter's bones did not fade. Each sound made them turn. Each shadow made them reach for their blades. This was not fear they knew. This was something older, something deeper. The team had started with 5. Now they were 4. Their leader walked in front. His eyes scanned the ground. He studied the broken branches and the soft marks in the dirt. Human tracks were fresh, but they were not fleeing. They were circling, watching, studying. This thought pressed into his mind. These humans were not running from danger. They were drawing the hunters in. The group moved in silence. They formed a line and spread through the trees. They did not speak. Their suits made no sound. Their sensors kept searching for heat or movement. But the forest gave no answers. After 1 hour, one hunter spotted movement. A single human stood near the river. He was tall and still. His skin was marked with lines. He wore dark clothes and held a tool in each hand. One looked like a blade. The other was shaped like a hook. The hunter aimed his weapon and moved closer. He wanted a clean strike. Fast and simple. But as he stepped forward, the ground beneath him cracked. A pit opened. Metal spikes rose from the bottom. He fell without a sound. The others heard the crash and ran. They found the pit. They looked inside. The hunter was not moving. His suit was torn, his body broken. The human was gone. Only his footprints remained. The leader stood at the edge of the pit. He felt heat in his chest, not from anger, from shame. This was no longer a hunt. This was failure. They carried the body to a safe place and covered it with stones. It was part of their code. Even in defeat, they honored their own. The leader placed the broken blade beside the stones and closed his eyes for a moment. Now they were 3. They moved again, but with less pride. Their steps were careful. Their eyes watched the trees. They no longer believed in victory. They only wanted to return. But the ship was locked. It would not open until the hunt was finished. This was the rule set by the council. No escape without success. Hours passed. The sky turned orange. They heard distant noises, voices, movement, human signs. But each time they followed, the trail ended in nothing. One hunter grew tired. He complained to the leader. He said the humans fought dirty. He said this was not honorable. The leader said survival was never clean. He said hunters must adapt. He said those who do not learn will fall. As night came, the air grew colder. The leader ordered rest. They built a fire near a cliff wall. They placed sensors around the camp. They took turns watching the dark dot in the middle of the night. A sharp sound woke them. One sensor flashed. A signal from the west. A single shape had crossed the line. It moved fast, then stopped. The leader gave a sign. They moved together with weapons ready. The trees were thick. The moonlight came in small pieces. Then they saw something on the ground. It was the second hunter's weapon, placed upright in the dirt, stuck into a small mound, a message carved in wood beside it. The words were clear. The leader read them. "You bleed now." The hunter beside him took a step back. He said this was not war. This was a game. He said humans were using tricks. He said they must return to the ship, but the leader said no. He said leaving now would bring dishonor. He said the council would send others. He said it must end here. Suddenly, a branch cracked behind them. They turned fast, but there was no one. Then something flew through the air. A sharp piece of metal hit the youngest hunter in the leg. He fell with a shout. Blood came fast. The leader fired his weapon into the trees. Still, no sound. No scream, no answer. They lifted the wounded hunter and ran back to the fire. They checked. The wound, it was deep but not deadly. Still, the pain made the hunter weak. He stared at the sky. He said the humans were monsters. He said they had no fear. The leader said humans had plenty of fear, but they used it well. The fire burned low. The forest watched in silence. Before dawn, the leader sat alone. He thought of his past. He remembered other hunts, fast victories, easy prey, pride, celebration. Now he felt none of that. He thought of the human who stood still near the river, calm, ready, no fear in his eyes. He thought of the traps, the message, the silence. He now understood. These humans were not animals. They were warriors shaped by pain. They had learned through loss. They had built strength through struggle. And they had no code to follow but one. Win or die. The leader looked at the fire. He picked up a stone and marked it with a line. One for each hunter lost. He placed it beside his blade. Then he looked toward the trees. He spoke to the dark. We came to hunt, but now we are hunted, and you are not prey. You are the fire, and the fire always burns back. Fear. In the dark, the night grew heavy around them. The fire had burned low, but no one moved to feed it. The wounded hunter lay with his back against a stone, breathing slow. His face was pale, and sweat ran down his neck. The other two watched the trees. They did not speak. They waited. The leader stood apart from them. His eyes never left the darkness beyond the firelight. He knew the humans were near. He could feel it in the stillness. The forest was too quiet. No insects, no wind, only silence. He turned his head slowly and looked at the young hunter. Blood still seeped from the wound. They had wrapped it tight, but it would not stop. The young one had not spoken since the attack. His eyes stared at nothing. The leader moved closer. He knelt and placed a hand on the young hunter's shoulder. The touch made the injured one blink. He looked up with tired eyes. He said nothing. The leader spoke in a low voice. He said the pain would pass. He said they would return soon. But his voice had no weight. The words fell empty. The hunter beside the fire leaned forward. He picked up a small piece of metal found near the last trap. It was shaped like a claw. He turned it in his hand. The edges were rough, handmade, sharp. He said the humans were crafting weapons from scrap. He said they were not using energy tools or machines. They were using what they found. He said this was not weakness. This was something more. The leader agreed. He said humans had learned to fight with whatever they had. He said this made them dangerous. It made them hard to predict. Suddenly a sound broke the silence. A distant hum. Not loud but strange. It came from deep in the forest. The hunters rose and readied their weapons. The sound moved from one side to the other. Then it stopped. They waited. Then another sound came. A long, slow breath. Close, too close. The leader turned fast. His eyes caught movement near the edge of the light. A shadow moved behind a tree. He fired, but hit only bark. The fire flickered. Then something landed in the center of the camp. A bag. It rolled and stopped near the fire. The leader stepped forward and opened it. Inside was a mask, one of their own. Cracked and stained. The leader knew whose it was. The second hunter. The one lost near the river. The hunter by the fire. stood frozen. His hands shook. He said nothing. The leader dropped the mask and looked into the woods. He raised his voice. He spoke to the humans. He said this was not a fair fight. He said this was not a true hunt. He said they should face them. No answer came. Only the sound of leaves moving in the dark. He knew they would not come forward. He knew they had no reason to. They were winning without risk. He told the others to move. They could not stay. The fire was a trap. The forest gave cover to the enemy. They lifted the wounded hunter. He groaned but did not resist. They moved through the trees slowly. The leader watched the ground. He looked for tripwires or holes. He saw none. But the fear remained. The path grew narrow. The trees closed in. Fog rose from the earth, cold and thick. The leader felt the air press against his chest. The hunter behind him whispered. He said he saw movement. The leader stopped. He signaled silence. Then the young one cried out. He dropped to the ground. Something had touched his leg. Not metal, not a weapon. A hand. The leader turned and fired. Into the mist. A figure dashed away. Fast. Low to the ground. He ordered them to run. They carried the wounded between them. Branches cut their suits. Roots tripped their steps. The fog made it hard to breathe. They reached a small clearing. A broken wall stood near the center. Old stone, human-made. Maybe a ruin from a past war. They hid behind it. The leader checked the scanners. Still no clear signals. The humans were masking their heat, using the land. Using tricks. He heard a sound above, a slow creak. He looked up and saw nothing. But something was there. He raised his weapon. Then a voice spoke. A human voice, calm, quiet. You should leave. Hunters froze. The voice came from the shadows. From the trees, the leader shouted back. He said the mission would not end like this. He said they would not run. The voice replied. Then you will not leave at all, the leader fired. The light from the blast showed no target. Only branches and smoke. Silence returned. He turned to the others. The young one was slipping away. His eyes closing. His breathing weak. The leader knelt and placed his hand on his chest. He said nothing. The hunter's chest rose once more, then stopped. Now they were two. The last hunter stared at the body. He whispered a prayer. Not for victory. Not for honor. Just peace. The leader stood and looked at the trees. He raised a small device and pressed a button. A message began to send. It was short. He spoke into it. His voice low and steady. This is the first contact team. 3 lost. 1 remains with me. Earth is not what we thought. Do not send more. The humans are not prey. They are something else. They do not fear us. They do not run. They fight like nothing we have seen. They know pain. They know how to turn fear into strength. They are not hunters. They are war. He ended the message. Then he placed the device on the stone and walked into the trees. He did not look back. He knew the end would come, but he would see it with his eyes open, because now he understood what they were facing, and he wanted to see the face of the one who would bring the end. The message spreads, far away from Earth, inside the command chamber of the Apex Hunters mothership. A red light blinked on the center screen. A signal had arrived from the first contact team. The room was filled with tall, silent figures. Their armor was marked with victories. Their faces showed no emotion. Their leader stood still as the message played. The voice of the first contact leader echoed through the room. He spoke of failure. He spoke of death. He spoke of humans. The message ended. The silence that followed was long. No one moved. No one spoke. Then the High War Chief stepped forward. He said the first contact team had been careless. He said their failure must be corrected. He said Earth would now face a full strike force. Orders were sent. Warships prepared. To move, warriors sharpened their blades and checked their gear. The mission was no longer a hunt. It was now a punishment. It was about pride. No one had ever hurt the apex hunters and walked free. No one had ever turned a hunt into a defeat. While the ships moved toward Earth, the message kept spreading. It reached outposts across many systems. Some laughed at it. Others grew curious. A few grew afraid. The words were strange. Not prey, not weak, not afraid. These words did not match the old stories about humans. These words planted doubt. On Earth, the humans were not sitting still. They had seen the wreckage of the enemy ship. They had studied the armor of the fallen hunters. They had collected tools and learned fast. They understood this was not an isolated event. They knew more were coming. Leaders from different parts of the world came together. Some were soldiers. Some were scientists. Some had never spoken before. Now they shared ideas. They built new traps. They trained others in how to move unseen. They watched the sky every night. In the deep forest where the first blood was spilled, a man named Ely stood before a group of young fighters. He held up the broken blade of a hunter. He said this was proof that the enemy could bleed. He said the forest had taught them how to strike. He said the time had come to prepare the land for war. Nearby, a group of engineers worked on old machines. They turned farming tools into weapons. They rigged drones with silent engines. They placed sound traps in the woods that copied animal calls to confuse the enemy. In a mountain base, a woman named Rena trained a team to fight without weapons. She taught them how to blend with the land, how to set fire without smoke, how to see in the dark. She said the enemy would come with pride, but pride would not save them. Across the ocean, a group of students cracked the code used by the hunters' suits. They learned how the armor worked. They found its weak spots. They built simple tools to break it. They shared their findings with every camp. The world was still divided in many ways. People still spoke different tongues. They still had different flags, but in this moment, they had one enemy. And that enemy was coming. The sky changed on the third night. Lights appeared above the clouds. Fast and silent, the warships had arrived. People stopped. They looked up. Some prayed. Some held their weapons tighter. Some whispered to their children. The ships did not land all at once. They hovered, watching, scanning, waiting for signs of fear. Inside one of the lead ships, the new commander gave the order to begin the drop. He said the humans must be shown their place. He said this was not war. This was correction. But Earth was not silent. The moment the first drop pods entered the sky, ground stations fired MP bursts. The enemy scanners blinked and failed. Some of the pods spun off course and crashed into rivers or deep forests. The humans did not wait. They moved fast. Teams surrounded crash sites and used smoke to blind the enemy. They used sound to mislead them. They attacked from angles the hunters could not expect. In one field, a squad of hunters stepped forward with blades ready. The ground beneath them exploded. A pit opened. Fire shot up. They scattered. Two never rose again. In a ruined town, a group of human fighters hid in buildings. They lured hunters into tight spaces. They used mirrors to reflect light and confuse sensors. One human slid under a hunter and placed a trap on his back. The suit cracked. The hunter fell. The hunters tried to regroup. But the land was not theirs. The trees were not their allies. The wind did not carry their scent. Every move they made was seen. Every step they took made a sound the humans could hear. The commander watched the losses. His face showed nothing, but inside he felt something new. He sent more troops. He ordered full force, no rules, no limits. But even full force could not change the land. The humans moved like they had trained for this moment all their lives. They used rivers as walls. They used birds to signal movement. They shared everything in silence and code. In a deep cave, Eli and Rena stood before a map. They marked each fallen hunter. They marked each trap still active. They said the plan was working. But the fight was not over. Rena looked at the sky through a hole in the cave wall. She said the enemy would bring more. She said they would keep coming until something broke. Eli said the hunters came to teach fear. But they had found something else. They had found resistance. They had found fire. He picked up a stone and scratched a mark on the wall. One for each day they survived. He said the enemy thought Earth was weak. But Earth had always been a place of struggle. He said the real hunt had only just begun. And the ones who started it were now the ones being chased. Shock of the galaxy. The sun rose over a quiet battlefield. Smoke drifted between the trees. Burnt leaves covered the ground. The scent of fire and metal stayed in the air. No birds sang. No animals moved. The silence spoke louder than any war cry. In the center of the ruined land stood Eli. His clothes were torn. His hands were stained with dirt and blood. He held a radio close to his mouth. His voice was calm. He gave clear orders. Move north. Block the pass. Watch the skies. His people listened. They trusted him. Across the valley, the enemy regrouped. The apex hunters had lost more warriors in 2 days than in 50 years. Their numbers dropped fast. Their pride cracked. Their leader paced near a command post. He studied maps drawn by machines, but the machines failed to read the human mind. The land did not obey logic. The humans did not follow patterns. The leader called for a retreat, but the ground command refused. They said honor must be restored. They said fear must be erased. They said the humans had no right to stand. But the humans did stand in the forest to the east. Rena moved with her team. They carried light weapons and used simple gear. They followed the same paths made by wolves and deer. They knew which leaves made no sound. They knew where the hunters might fall. They struck fast and vanished faster. They became whispers in the trees. In the west, a group of farmers turned fighters held their line near a river. They had no training, but they had strong hearts. They used old tools sharpened into blades. They stood behind fallen logs and broken trucks. When the hunters came, they fought side by side. They lost many, but they held the river. The enemy changed their plan. They sent machines into the air, drones with heat vision, scanners with long reach. But the humans answered with light traps and smoke bombs. They used mirrors to bend the light. They burned fields to mask their heat. The machines saw nothing. The hunters grew blind. Inside a bunker deep below the city, old leaders met with young minds. They shared thoughts quickly. One man spoke of signals. Another spoke of sound. A girl showed a new way to jam the enemy's link. She used a song played backward. The song blocked commands. The hunters lost voice. The high commander grew restless. He ordered a full strike. All ships, all firepower. He said, burn the land if you must. Break their bones. Crush their hope. But as they launched their final assault, something changed. The sky darkened. Not from clouds, not from smoke. From ships, human ships. They were not large. They were not many. But they were fast, built from stolen tech. Powered by bold ideas. Driven by fearless hands, one ship crashed into the enemy flagship. Not by accident. A planned strike. The blast ripped open the hull. Fire spread. Chaos followed. The humans had taken the fight to the stars. Back on the ground, the battle reached its peak. Hunters charged through smoke. Humans stood firm. Arrows flew. Bullets roared. Metal clashed. Voices rose. But in the middle of the noise, one thing became clear. The hunters had never fought for survival before. They had hunted for sport, for pride, for glory. But now they fought with fear. And fear slowed them. The humans had always fought for survival, for family, for home, for each other. And that gave them strength. In a final push near the valley, Eli led the last charge. He ran beside people from every land. His voice rose above the noise. He called them forward, no speeches, no grand words. Only truth. He said now or never. He said, this is our world. The enemy broke, their leader fell. His mask cracked, his voice weak. He saw humans standing tall. He saw fire in their eyes. He reached for a blade, but his hand shook. He dropped it. Tilly looked at him. He said nothing. He turned and walked away. The battle was over. The news spread fast. Across the stars, across systems, across borders, the apex hunters had lost. Not to machines, not to giants, but to humans. Words spread from one world to another. Whispers became stories. Stories became warnings. Do not go to Earth, they said. Do not wake the fire. Do not hunt the hunters. The galaxy watched with new eyes on Earth. People began to rebuild. They buried their dead. They cleaned their towns. They planted trees again. They taught their children what happened. They did not build statues. They did not sing songs of victory. They did not dance in the streets. They remembered the fear, the loss, the pain. And they remembered the strength born from standing together. Ely stood on a hill where the battle once burned. He looked up at the stars. He knew more would come someday. Maybe not soon. Maybe not in his time. But the stars always move. He placed a hand on the stone beside him. On it was carved no names, only words. We were ready. Far above, in dark corners of space, other species spoke in quiet tones. They marked Earth on their maps with red signs, not as a target, as a warning. One name rose again and again. Humans. Some called them survivors. Some called them monsters. Some called them the firewalkers. But one title remained louder than the rest. Deathwarders. Ones who turned fear into flame. Ones who made the hunters run. The ones who shocked the galaxy forever. The end.